Hello, my audience. My name is Jake. I'm reviewing Guardians of the Galaxy, the first installment. I give it a 5 out of 10. I enjoyed it slightly less, even though about the same amount of points I'm giving it as James Gunn's Superman movie. I enjoy it slightly less than the James Gunn reimagining of Superman, but about the same amount of score I would give it as a final verdict. A 5 out of 10 for me. I'm giving it. And I'm going to review Volume 2 in the same video because, and I'm going to review Volume 3 on a separate video because that came out a separate decade of film. So that's going to get a separate channel review video for that review on Volume 3. So I'm reviewing Volume 3 and Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy, Part 1 and Part 2 of this saga with the Guardians. I give both a 5 points out of 10 points. I liked him as a guilty pleasure, meaning I like it, but I'm also embarrassed to like it. Because I wouldn't call it good high standards of entertainment for me. I wouldn't put it on high standards of entertainment, but more of my low standards of entertainment. As a perfectly well guilty pleasure, it gets 5 out of 10 points as a guilty pleasure of mine. Most installments get 5 out of 10 points. So spoilers, I'm going to talk about all the bullshit and story plot lines in case you're interested and want to see these movies that are a mess of movies. Then feel free to stop watching my video now, because I'm going to go into spoiler territory right away from here on out. So part 1 of the story is about Peter Quill grieving over his mother, and it shows a bunch of, I guess it's about Peter Quill, but I'm not sure what his character arc is. Okay, so because the movie opens up with him not holding his mother's hand when she's about to die and go from cancer, and have the soul exit the body, so he just refused to hold her mother's hand. So he gets abducted by Yondu and his crew. Then he becomes friends with Gamora and this talking tree called Groot and this raccoon that doesn't know he's a raccoon. And he finds out what a raccoon is in Volume 3 because he just didn't know what a raccoon was because he's stupid like everyone else. Rocket name is the raccoon. And also he becomes friends with this Drax, the Destroyer character, who wants revenge for his family on Thanos, and also wants to kill Ronan too, the Executioner, and who works for Thanos. So they team up to kill Ronan and kick his ass, and have them all share have them all touch hands, and while Peter holds survives the being dying, and while they all I don't know how it makes sense, but somehow they all survive from touching one Infinity Stone, even though it could kill one person just by touching it. It was shown early in the movie. So Peter Quill, we find out later, is part god besides part human, but the others don't have that godlike potential in the movies mythology. They never were gods, part god like Peter was before he killed his father in Volume 2 with blowing his brain up. That's a planet called Ego the Living Planet. You know what Ego the Living Planet is if you ever read the comics. So don't worry, sorry, but Besides the Virtue Bubbles, but the mythology of Ego the Living Planet is a different mythology than what's in the movie. Because Gunn creator has never read a Marvel comic in his life, I'm pretty sure, or any comic book. That's just a guess on mine, okay? But I can just tell because where his work speaks for himself. All of his comic book adaptation, betrayals on characters. So, Ego, the living planet, wants to enslave Peter because Peter doesn't want to help him take over the galaxy. So he uses Peter as a battery, blah blah blah. Because after turning on his father, finding out his father killed his mother and planted her with a cancer tumor. So he gave her mother cancer, and because he didn't want to go back to, because he didn't want to, like, felt tempted to go back to her, so he just, like, decided to give her cancer in her brain. And then when PF has this, he just turns on he turns on his father instantly, and shoots the bastard. And even though it doesn't do anything, he just, like, and because he's a planet, not a human, and he's in his human form. So the whole so it, of course, doesn't kill him. They have to blow up his brain, his real brain that's inside the planet of Ego, the living planet, because he's a planet. So they have to blow up his brain, and the planet devising the same thing to blow up his brain, and blah blah blah. He blows up and the brain and kills his father, making him just a mortal man like everyone else. So he's now 100% mortal, and so probably he couldn't survive that Infinity Stone deal with touching one. He probably would die instantly by just like the one alien did earlier in the Volume 1. But it's still not explained how Drax and all of his friends are able to survive the Infinity Stone if they don't have any mortality in their genes. But it makes sense for Quill, I guess. But what about everyone else? They were all just regular aliens, and Peter was part human, but part god alien, like his dad, because of his dad inherited the genes. So I just don't think Gunn thought of this through, making Peter a part god for a short period of time and having him hold the Infinity Stones. I just think he thought it would look cool and epic, and a cool way to bring the Guardians together and have their team name acknowledged. So, because it doesn't make any fucking sense if you knew the comic mythology or if you didn't know the comic mythology by Marvel 616. It doesn't make sense of any realm of logic, where it's comic logic or film logic. So my only conclusion is he just thought it would look cool, these ideas, and just threw them in the blender of the final draft of the script. That's why I give them 5 points out of 10 points. The Guardians movies. Part 1 and Part 2. I give them 5 points out of 10 points. This raised too many questions. And so, well, what's going on? I don't understand. I feel Gunn didn't think this through, but then he's not one that thinks. He really does. He comes across a guy that doesn't really act on thinking logic, thinking rationally. He strikes me as a guy that acts on his impulse, but doesn't really think on how it's going to make sense. But just acts on his impulse because he thinks it would look cool. That's the problem with Gunn's movies. He can think of what can look cool, but he doesn't know how it will make sense in hindsight. He can think of pretty cool, I guess, but he can't make a sense of it, okay? So, yeah, these movies are stupid. Pretty much bare bones. Down to its core. Both movies are just stupid. But I don't know if Gunn knows they're stupid. I think he might think he actually created something intelligent. At least I think that's what he thinks. But then I think Marvel thinks he might create something deeper into intelligent and new, when he really just creates a mess of bad ideas that just happened to pull a miracle out of his ass financially and with the critics and audiences. Because this movie made a trilogy, and each trilogy made its more than money back, and did well with money financially, making back. But So what the fuck do I know? I don't know any right now what's real anymore, because the fact these movies made money, each one made money more than enough to make a success at theaters, makes me question reality, and makes me want to consider jumping out of a fucking window, because how stupid this logic is, how stupid the world's become with low standards of taste in movies, especially comic book movie adaptations. The world's become stupid. I'm convinced now. We're not an intelligent race. We're this retarded race out of everyone. We just have to be on top of the food chain because we're the suckers and we weasel our way up to the top. Because we're busy killing off everything in the world and surviving animals and insects and stuff. Truly, we are the lucky retards of the human race. Even though we're on top of the food chain. We're also retarded in aspects of life in hindsight. Definitely not smart. Because if we were smart, we wouldn't have made Gunn money. And give him our wallet money. Tons of it for each installment. Luckily, we're past the dark age of comic book movies, and people are wising up and realizing there's more to life than this, your standard crap. It seems like, at least I hope that's what it is, and I'm hoping that's why a lot of people are turning against DC and Marvel with the Gun universe by DC, and the Marvel universe where Marvel's been going since Phase 2. So it seems like Marvel and fans and DC fans are wise and realizing there's more than your standard crap in life for comic book adaptations. Like, it doesn't have to be an intentionally bad movie. It can be a good movie, like Zack Snyder's Justice League or Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. It could be a good universe with continuity, consistent writing, and world building. And not just making every scene up as you go along, without any structure or story. Like Gunn did with the Guardians. And that's how them all and have everyone be an idiot and a punchline joke character, to the point there's really not any point to have a comedic relief character anymore. When all of them are comedic relief characters, I argue, on the Guardians. So, the guys are all comedic relief characters, so none of them are. So it's like I don't understand why have comedic relief characters if everything's going to be a comedic, because it seems like the following up with the Avengers Age of Ultron after Guardians Volume 1 came out. I think Age of Ultron Volume 2, and that had more comedic chops than the first Avengers movie. And each Avengers movie since entering Phase 2 and beyond Phase 2, it just goes more comedic than the Lethal Weapon franchise ever went with Lethal Weapon 4. That's the one where Chris Rock is the third character, and he made 3 main characters instead of keeping it to 2 main characters. So, that's Lethal Weapon 4. But the thing is, since entering Phase 2 and Phase 3 and Phase 4 and so on, every Marvel movie feels like, almost every Marvel movie, or more or less, feels like Lethal Weapon 4. The worst fucking one in the franchise. But it feels like we do that many times, like the Lethal Weapon plot, multiple times, with multiple bad jokes, and multiple characters, and multiple two old characters that are recurring, and just throw a bunch of bad ideas and see what happens for laughs. But not really progressing characters anymore. You're just trying to get a laugh out of the audience because you're desperate, instead of developing Danny Glover and Mel Gibson's character, because you don't know what else to do with them other than just bring them in because you can make money off the audience. And you gotta sell those tickets. So that's why I think Guardians 2 movies feels like the same as Lethal Weapon 4. You know, I'm not sure this has anything to do with these, because these feel like awfully different Guardians of the Galaxy than any of the one with the gun universe. The ones from Earth's Mightiest Heroes shows, or the ones from the comics that use when they use this team. I know that we're like the team got mixed around over the years, the Guardians, but with these each members, they just feel like they're the all the idiot ones, like. I feel like watching these characters annoy the shit out of me. Because they're all taking like this annoying contest. You know that Pat, where like Jim Carrey like in Dumb and Dumber 1 made the most annoying sound in the world, and he calls that the most annoying sound in the world when he asked the guy that was that they poisoned when they thought there was heart medication. You know, I feel like I'm watching like a superhero movie, but with those characters, Dumb and Dumber. All four or five of them. I forget how many Guardians characters there are on Team Guardians, like 4 or 5. And the first 2 ones, members of Guardians. Let's see, Drax, Peter Quill, Gamora, Rocket, Groot. Yeah, the 5 members in the first one. And then got 2 more members like Yondu and Mantis in the sequel. But, Yondu gets killed off. And because Sorrow sacrifice or some bullshit like that. Because of love for Peter. I guess. I didn't think he loved Peter. This is... Movies are exhausting to watch and to talk about, these story of the Guardians movies. I give them 5 points out of 10 points. The first one. And the sequel, I give it a 4 out of 10. I like the first one more, and the sequel less, as a 4 points out of 10. And I give the first one a 5 out of 10. Because I like the first sequel and all, but I like it slightly less than the first one. Mostly because I couldn't stand Baby Groot. I hated that Baby Groot character. I never liked him, Baby Groot. He was too annoying more than regular Groot was as an adult. Like, Groot was annoying enough, but adult Groot was annoying enough in 3 and 1. But he was still likable. But Baby Groot is like has worse than Scrappy fucking Groot. That Baby Groot is worse and more unfunny than Scrappy friggin' Doo, or just as funny as Scrappy Doo from the Scooby-Doo franchise. You know how he thinks he's a tough guy, but now he's ridiculously small and tiny and helpless looking compared to everyone else, and he's easily could just get stepped on. Like, when he goes up against villains bigger than him. We're supposed to find that funny, but personally, after a while, first time, I just found that annoying. First few times, with Scrappy. Same goes for Baby Groot. He's a little worse than Scrappy Doo. At least I can say Scrappy Doo's original character, but I can say Baby Groot feels like the knockoff version, retarded version of Scrappy Doo. Because he doesn't even talk like Scrappy in full sentences. He just says, "I am Groot" again, like the adult Groot. But it's not as charming or funny as when Groot says it versus Baby Groot. Because Baby Groot is an obnoxious fuck. I hate him as a teenager also. And I hate him as a kid. Groot. I only like adult Groot. I hate kid and teenage Groot. I hated those characters. Those versions of Groot so much. You know, the more I'm thinking about it, I think I want to give Guardians 2 a 3 out of 10 points. Because I couldn't stand Groot in Volume 2. Because of Baby Groot's his age, he is. So I give it 3 out of 10, Volume 2. And Volume 1, I give a 5 out of 10. Yeah. Volume 2 gets a 3 out of 10. Volume 1 gets a 5 out of 10. So Volume 2, Guardians Volume 2 is 3 out of 10. And Volume 1 is 5 out of 10 points. Final verdict. Goodbye, subscribe, like this video, grow my subscribers, grow my likes. That's my review on Guardians movies, the first 2 ones. Hope you enjoyed this review.